something?
No, I think that you're probably not alone, especially with this, some of the women on this group right here. Random men sound good. Look at Janet going random. Random men, good.
Sita? No, Lisa, sorry, Sita was the one who called in before, and I don't think she can't find the email, and she just said she rechecked. So is it possible to just send her the link again?
I'm sending it to her right now.
Thank you, thank you.
Okay.
I'll just tell you, sorry about that.
How does she do two things at once? If I have this up, I don't know how to do the rest of it, right?
It's on its way. You know what, Janet, I have a couple screens up at the same time until we get going. So that's probably why yes.
She found it. Thank you. Sorry.
I think that's going to be our day-to-day. Now, just for everyone's information, I know that we had talked about helping Tiffany while she was at home dealing with baby. And so I just requested from her some information about restaurants and, or Uber Eats or anything that she needs. And so as soon as I hear back from her, I'll send it out. And if anybody wants to send her a meal, I'm sure that they're still gratefully accepting them.
Oh no, I think at this point, like she's totally got the whole thing, and the baby's sleeping through the night, and I wouldn't worry about her.
Yeah, right.
Like, how old is the baby? How old is?
Maybe 2 months now.
Oh yeah, not a problem.
And I remember my mother-in-law trying to be so helpful, because Spencer wasn't colicky, but he'd have these things every once in a while when he was really little where he would just cry inconsolably. And I talked to the baby line and they said, well, listen, we all have the ability to tune things out, and newborns can't tune anything out. So all day long, the noise that they hear and the voices and the cooing and all of that, they absorb it and they have to let it out somehow. So she said, just take him in a dark room, just be really quiet, just told him he should be okay. I go over to my mother-in-law, she's got him on the washing machine. Washing machine is in the rinse cycle. And he's going like this. I'm like, I think there's less traumatic ways than to put your kid on the washing.
Oh, I have to say, some people swear by the washing machine. My brother did. I
think it's a great idea.
He seemed happy, but I was traumatized. Not good. It's not good. So I'm sure we'll get a few more people joining, but it was suggested that we talk today about stress, and it's all forefront in our minds in so many different ways. So I'm sure that we're all going to have a lot to contribute. And then Sita asked that we follow up our stress talk with about focus. So I'm going to have Sita give us some guidance on that when we get there. But one of the things that has happened with me, and I'm sure it's with everybody here because we're women, is that we put our stress way down. We just keep pushing it down. Mm-hmm. I remember when I was, in several relationships, someone said to me, Lisa, women leave when they're done. Mm. Men leave when things get crazy or when they get a little scared or they get, inconvenienced, but women leave when they're done. And it's because for years, we push ourselves way down and pile on top of us, the things that are taking care of family, taking care of our businesses, taking care of ourselves, and absolutely address those issues last. And I think that's kind of like a metaphor for stress. Mm. We do the exact same thing. And I know that when the stress finally bubbles to the surface, it's, don't come within 10 feet of me because I'm about to erupt. And everything that I do based on that is not logical, right? My anger is not logical. I'm spewing or angry at people around me that I'm not really angry at, but they're my target. And so I was hoping with all of these very bright, strong women here that we can talk about addressing it, noticing it right away and addressing it right away, rather than doing what we do, which is back burner ourselves. And I don't know, maybe it would avoid less eruptions. Maybe, my kids wouldn't be running in horror to Laughlin for 3 days and calm down. I don't know, all of that stuff. But anyway, that was just kind of the topic, and that's where my mind went. And so I would love it if anybody wants to contribute. Actually, Marilyn, I apologize. Can you protect us? Sorry, Marilyn, I'm sorry.
I forgot to. I'm being held captive.
Oh,
Active.
Okay, so
oh.
Penelope wants to say, this is Penelope,
Hi, Penelope.
and we clothe ourselves in a robe of light, composed of the love, the power, and the wisdom of divine consciousness. We wear it not only for our own protection, but also so that those who see it or come in contact with it will be drawn to divine and healing. Please, divine, let your light surround us, let it permeate us, let it fill us up and emanate from us and reflect back to you and to each other, and help us to always remember that we are the light, we are the divine light. And take a deep breath. And then just relax. And there it is.
Thank you, Marilyn. That was stressful for a minute there. Out of order. As we were sitting there, I realized, there's good stress too, right? That nervous stress or that nervous anxiety, and that's instantly relieved once you accomplish whatever it is. Like, for example, this podcast that I'm very familiar with everybody in it. I'm friends with a bunch of them, good friends with a bunch of them now. And they have these quiz days. They're always looking for somebody to do a quiz with the hosts of this podcast. And I can't bring myself to do it. I'm just nervous at the idea of what if they did select me to do it. And it's really random. It's nothing that puts you on the spot, but it does, that stress, that anxiety of having to, be forefront like that is kind of difficult for me. So I know that might be hard to believe, but it's true. So I guess there's good stress too. So I just wanted to know if anybody wanted to contribute or kick us off on this conversation. Yes, Sophia.
I want to put myself out there as an example of what you were talking about in terms of how women make themselves the lowest priority in their lives and how that creates stress. That is so incredibly true. And you're saying that your stress manifests itself. It's once you hit that point with, just probably anger or short-temperedness. Or I was in a situation where in order to see my child, I had to put myself last, and in order to make it okay for my kid, in order for him not to have stress, in order for him not to be the sandwich we used to call him. I used to tell him, I don't want you to be filling in the sandwich between your father and me. But his father is a very bad actor. So I've been doing this for 10 years, 13 years. And finally, and what I found out is it not only manifests itself in the way that you're talking about, but it actually rewires your brain. And in doing so, it actually causes you to manifest physical symptoms. I mean, we talk about how arthritis is affected by your stress, and we all know about these kinds of things, but actually it can be to the point where it's so major that you have pain all over your body or you can't walk. That's how strong and amazing our brains are. And so it's good to be able to, it's more than just like, I want to be good company. You have to be good to yourself. And that I recommend hitting it, as you said, at the beginning, because you can't push it away. Eventually it'll come and get you.
So Sophia, let me ask you this question in regards to that. And I had a similar experience. Spencer's dad is a good guy, but he just, but I always made sure that all of my issues regarding his dad were pushed down. I had a therapist once tell me that Spencer will figure it all out on his own. You don't need to say anything or do anything. But that required, just like you said, me pushing down my feelings for all these years about this person I'm no longer married to for obvious reasons. So,
Yes, I got the same kind of advice.
yeah, so I don't know how you deal with that head on, because you're ultimately, and chime in, ladies, because ultimately you're looking out for the benefit or for the health of your son, or your child, I'm sorry. And isn't that what we're supposed to do?
Yeah, I know it's really hard because we all know that, and because not only do we know, but we feel our child is first, right?
Right.
And in my case, I just continued to do it, and I ended up very ill. And my cat and my child right now is 16, and he's a charming, intelligent, tall, gorgeous, very well socialized child. And now he's in daily treatment, mental health treatment, because he just stopped. He just said, I go to school. He doesn't go to any of his classes. He's going from average kid to straight Fs. And it's because he has no agency in his life, kind of like I did. Like I couldn't really express myself, and nor can he, because his dad has NPD, which is narcissistic personality disorder. So everybody around him is an afterthought or an actor, but like a supporting cast in his dad's life. And this is how it's manifesting for my child. So I was at one point recently, I was told by his therapist, my child's therapist, a couple of years ago, that you should tell him the truth. I did. It did not go well. So I don't recommend that. That's what I can say, because your kids can push back. It doesn't matter what the reality is. I mean, at least my child, and I think that makes sense if you think about kids to me.
Yeah,
There's that loyalty issue.
sure. I mean, sure. I mean, you hear about that about children that are abused, right? That they
So true.
still love their abuser. Yeah, that's a really difficult one. I don't know, so, Sophia, and we got therapists here, so they could probably chime in as well. But I do have a friend that is a therapist for at-risk teens, and she told me when Spencer was young that just pretend he's drunk, and that every single thing that you say, you like it's me. I repeat it over and over and over again, thinking that eventually it's going to get through. And she's like, no, it's like talking to a drunk person. Just say it once. Maybe he gathers some of it, and wait till he's in a better frame of mind. But that kind of helped me during his, and he was a good kid during all of it. I mean, I didn't really have he was not a kid that got in trouble or ever did anything, wrong. But I did look at him sometimes and think, okay, remember, he's drunk, and he's drunk till he's about 22 or 23 is what she told me.
Yeah, that's what I heard too. And check back, guys, because Lord knows everything good's happening when he's 22. That's what I hear. And that's probably true in teenagers in general. I mean, whether or not your child's having any kind of stressors. I mean, I don't know. I myself, I know you guys all had wonderful teenage years, and you all wore Bobby socks and belonged to the proper clubs in school or whatever. But no, being a teenager, even if you do you wore Bobby socks and belong to the proper clubs at school, is the most difficult thing in the world.
Yeah.
And I have so much compassion for my son, everybody's sons and daughters. It's very hard, even under the best of circumstances. So when he's 22, apparently he's supposed to wake up and have some sort of epiphany, So
we can hope. Spencer's 26 now, and I enjoy every minute of spending time with him, even when we butt heads, which we do, because he's got his own opinions now. They're not mine anymore. So it's difficult. But back to the gist of what you were saying is how we can't really tackle that right when the stress starts, can we? Because yes, Alona.
So you can't tackle it with the person that you can't show it to, but you dump it somewhere else and you do it on a regular basis. That's what good therapy is for. That's what kickboxing is for. That's what belly dancing is for. That's what running's for. There are certain situations where we're just not going to rock the boat because the consequences are worse than telling the truth. But that doesn't mean that we dismiss our truth or we don't find another place to process it. And as long as you're doing that on a regular basis, you will not have a lot of backup. And for everybody, that's a different thing. You know, for some people, painting a picture is the thing that gets rid of the stress. And for other people, it's literally beating the crap out of a boxing thing. You know, you can't say what that is for everybody, but what you can say is that there has to be a physical release. Massage, like Sita will tell you, massage is a really good thing to get anger out. And it costs a lot of money to deal with stress. My suggestion for any woman who wants to be healthy on a regular basis, dealing with stress, is you either go to a chiropractor twice a month, you get a massage twice a month, you try some acupuncture, you go to therapy. I mean, every woman on the planet needs to have a healing by her side. That's a freaking amount of money. But if you want to know how to do it, the women who can afford that and pull that off and lead their lives really well and take care of themselves, they can do it. It's possible.
I wonder, Alona, all those modalities, believe me, I've done all of them. And they're, you know, everybody's situation is differently, and you're talking about different levels of stress. So, you know, I mean, and a lower level of stress. I think what we're saying, actually, what it sort of boils down to, and what I was thinking about, is that it's kind of about, we just said, as mothers, for instance, we put ourselves after everyone else, or as women, we put ourselves after everyone else. But maybe it's also about putting yourself first, kind of like the book we were reading. Hello, as I have cognitive issues. This what were we reading? The agreement,
the
four agreements.
Yeah.
It's kind of like you need there, in order to really manage the stress, even with using the modalities. I think you have to decide that it's about boundaries and it's about putting yourself first. Because and then, what do you think?
I'm sorry, that looks different for everyone.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. But I guess, and it does, and it also depends on where you are in your life and all sorts of different things. I think the common theme here, if I may, is that we tend not to put ourselves first, and that makes us vulnerable to the stress we're talking about.
I'm putting my birds away. I'm sorry, Sophia. You can hear her screaming, so I apologize. I'll be back.
I like cockatiels.
Right now.
I like it.
Yes, Jan, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I wanted to share something with people. I haven't said anything about this, but when my son got married, we started to drift apart. And, you know, when your son gets married, you lose a son, and daughter's a daughter forever, you know, but a son goes with his family like he should. But anyway, talk about putting yourself last. In my granddaughter's growing up years, all the way like 23, like I stopped communicating with my son a few years ago because we were fighting and it was intense. And I felt like, although I was giving into everything, my son was getting angrier and angrier. So I cut it off, mostly to save myself, because I felt like I was getting treated like I wasn't human anymore. And that must have been horrible for him too. So in this interim years, what I haven't made communication much at all with him. I've tried to find myself so that I can make communication with him, because it's not about changing him. It's about changing me. And I have to be in a place where I feel like I'm strong enough to not try to get him to do anything, but just to hold myself accountable and be with myself and stand up for myself in a way that's reasonable, like with another human being, a reasonable way. And if it blows up, then I can go away again or whatever. But I'm in that place where I still don't feel comfortable contacting him and going back and forth because I'm afraid it'll slip right back in. I'll slip right back in. So I don't want to do that. But that's it. My son's 55 years old, by the way, and I'm 71. So, you know, I've walked around this block a long time. But we grew up a little too close together because I was 16 when he was born. And we grew up more like brother and sister fighting with each other as opposed to mother and son. I tried, but I wasn't really the greatest of mothers, that's for sure. And anyway, I just wanted to share that because I'm not raising a young child like some of you, or a younger or a teenager. I think that's one of the most challenging times in life, is being a teenager. And when you're a mother of a baby or a father of a baby, that's another challenging time. So anyway, I'm there and I'm just trying to develop myself so that I can slip back into a relationship with him if he's willing, that protects me.
Jan, that's so sweet to hear, you know, what all you've been going through and that journey that we have to find out about ourselves. I think Ilona's been talking about that. All of us have been talking about how, and I think it's really what we're doing here on this call is going, okay, we can't change your son or the situation or whatever. And honestly, Jan, if any of us had had kids at 16, my kids would be in prison right now. I mean, I would have been horrible. So I give you a lot of credit. But I heard about a book called The Presence Process, where, and I don't know if some of you heard about that, but it's where you work on being so present that people can try to knock you off your feet, but you stay just who you are. You're Jan Hansen, no matter what happens. And I know I'm the one who brought up about stress because my blood pressure went up 30 points in the last 2 weeks. And it just, I thought I'm handling it all so well, moving my daughter in an abusive relationship. So Sophie, I totally get when you have kids that are going through stuff. My other daughter helping her with her pregnancy. And all of a sudden I thought, I don't feel well. And I took my blood pressure and it was very high. And I'm trying to then figure out, how do I get it down? I've gotten it down 8 points now. So I'm excited about that, but it's scary. Well, like Sophie was saying, my body, I didn't know it. I thought I'm doing okay. I'm doing okay. I went to look at 12 open houses, got home and went, I'm sick. I don't know what this is. And it was just blood pressure. Yeah.
You know, your blood pressure, my blood pressure, when I'm under stress, I don't have to measure it. I can feel my face flush and my heart rate just leaps, you know, and it's going really fast. I think the other thing about what you're saying is you thought you were doing well, but and you walking and talking and doing your tasks to do what you need to do to accomplish your goals, but it's about feeling safe. And that sort of goes back to the presence process. I mean, I haven't read the book, I don't know anything about it, but unless you feel like you're safe, then you're always going to be in this mode where you're in fifth gear all the time.
Right.
And you're draining your resources and you're trying to protect yourself from things that you think are going to happen, and your body can't be in fifth gear forever. So it's about maybe that presence process, maybe it's whatever makes you feel more safe. And I guess being present for yourself means that you can set boundaries and think about what's best for you. And then you feel safe because you know you take care of yourself. And maybe that's part of it too. So along with the nice things you do for yourself, like massages and things like that, it's about being secure in yourself and knowing you're okay wherever you are.
Right.
The most safe I ever felt, Sophie, was when I had a backpack walking across Spain by myself for 500 miles because I didn't have to worry about anybody else. I, feed myself, have my coffee and walk. It was wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah, I could totally see that. It's the things from outside. If we could just like live in a little nutshell, but it's the outside forces that pull on us and make us sometimes, because we get so involved in activities or other people's lives and needs, that they pull on us, and that's what causes the stresses. It really is about putting yourself first and going on a trip where you're by yourself doing the things you want to do. That's the ultimate. Wow, that sounds so nice.
Ilona?
So the safety, Sophia, is a really huge issue that the body responds to in relaxation. When we're safe, the body relaxes. When we don't feel spiritually, mentally, emotionally safe, or we're reliving memories that make us feel unsafe again, then the central nervous system is constantly firing. And Jan, as a psychiatrist, you know more about what happens with that than the rest of us do.
Well, yeah, that part, the medical part.
Yes, which has devastating consequences over time. So it's a big deal. But this is where faithfulness is really incredibly important, because if you anchor into your soul's awareness, if you allow yourself to see beyond the immediate picture, then you're not responsible for everything. You're participating in a person's life, but you're not directing it. You're understanding this larger role that is unfolding and allowing it to turn into something that can be beautiful for everybody involved. But that sense of faithfulness as true safety can bring blood pressure down quite a bit. The problem with, because they've proven that meditation can bring blood pressure down like in huge numbers. The problem is it only works for a short period of time. When you really move into a faithful state, then the blood pressure comes down consistently. And it's not about having to go into meditation for 20 minutes to drop it. It's knowing that no matter what's happening with your loved one, or with strangers or neighbors, that there is a bigger plan unfolding. And what your best process is to find what's your highest good in the situation. Because if you're in your highest good, everything else will work out. I worked with psychotic and suicidal kids. I started my career telling kids, look, your parents almost killed you, but the only thing that you can really take right now is the fact that they gave you life, and how you live it is up to you, because it's not going to be up to them. And I was telling kids this at age 6 to 13 on a regular basis, and empowering them to make choices that their parents will never make because they're just incapable of doing it for a variety of reasons. And they're in systems that aren't going to support them. So it's a really critical thing to have a sense of faith that places you in a context. There are some people we're going to lose. We're just going to lose them. And we have to be able to hold a vision for their best outcome when they can't even imagine having one. And sometimes that vision may be when they get to heaven, but we can't lose holding that vision. Otherwise, our hearts break too much. Faith is critical.
Yes, Mary Beth.
So faith is outside your brain.
Mhm.
So your brain, right? And Jan, you can back me up. And I know Sophia and I have talked about this a little bit. If you can get out of your mind, that kind of sounds funny, but yeah.
Completely out of my mind.
But faith is beyond your mind, right? So you're connecting to what Ilona is saying. You're connecting to the soul. You're connecting to the infinite. I've been reading about this a little bit, and it's a place to go where you stop the cycling, right? And hopefully you can gather the strength in that place to then address the physical issues. I find that's the issue. So when I'm under stress, I just shut down. That's it. Boom. Just shut down. I hate that feeling. And so if I can go into the infinite and gather the strength physically to then start the massages, the walking, the exercising, the eating well, the all that, then I'm okay. But it's kind of like putting your mind elsewhere, because your mind is the one that's, what do you call it? Sita calls it the monkey mind, right? It is the one that is just going over and over and over those stressors.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, you're right, Mary Beth. You know, and I can relate to that. But I guess the question is when when do we know to address it before it's too late? Before we have a shutdown, before we have, I mean, but you know, maybe part of it is that every day we do something to our, you know, to take a moment for ourselves, whether it's 20 minutes or it's an hour, or it's like me last night, I just went for a really quick walk, you know, something to take you out of that, right? And maybe that's our proactive or our prescription to help with some of this, you know, stress that we have, is just to take some time. Yes, Marie.
I would say the very, very first step is take a breath. That's where it all begins. If you can just take 2 minutes to just breathe in and out very slowly, that allows your brain to get oxygenated, gives you a little bit more clarity, and then you can move from there. But honestly, the very, very first step is take a breath. And believe me, I'm an expert because my body has been through it.
And Lisa, anytime you're triggered, as soon as you're triggered, that's when it starts.
Right.
You're aggravated, you're irritated, you're annoyed. That's it. It's begun. And that's when the breath has to happen.
Yeah. But, you know, and this is my personal experience, but, you know, when I was sick, you know, and my situation, my partner of 15 years had decided it was over. I still had some treatments left. I had now to find a job and a place to live. And so I suppressed all of that because I had to kick into survival mode and figure out how am I going to be able to continue to take care of myself under these circumstances. And, you know, I went and saw Janet, you know, just to help get me, at least give me some personal strength or some mantra that I could practice in my head. But what ended up happening is my friends and my family came in and took over. And they helped me move and they helped me pack, and they took the anger and they were angry at him, and they let me just try to figure out how I was going to live, and they took it all away from me. But 2 or 3 years later, it came back tenfold because I had suppressed it for so long, all that stress and anxiety and hurt from all of that happening at the time. And I don't know if it would have been lessened had I dealt with it right at the moment. But it just felt to me like I had to survive this. And the only way I could survive it is just to not think about all of that stuff, just to move on. But it does come back. I mean, it's just like, wait a minute, I thought this was all behind me. And no, it's not. That's not the case. You know, I can, you know, the other thing, and Jan, I wanted to address, you know, you and your son. I think that when we are our best people or our best person or the very best that we possibly can be, the strongest that we can be and the best we can be is when we can address relationships like with your son or things that are, you know, panicking us or worrying us, because we have our inner strength. And I think we achieve that, but like why Alona said, or how Alona said with faith, and how Marie said, taking some time to breathe. I think that, you know, we kind of focus on the issue and don't focus on us as much. You know, we're always looking at how are we going to solve this problem without realizing, you know, we've got to find our inner strength so we can address the problem. And that's that back burner. You know, we're always constantly thinking of what's the problem and how we're going to fix it rather than us. And
Excuse me. I'll finish, Lisa. Do you want to finish? I'm sorry.
go ahead.
But what you said, what's the problem? Sometimes the problem is about somebody else. It's really not your problem. And it is okay when you're creating boundaries to say, you know, that is your problem. It isn't mine. And I'm not going to carry it. And I'm not going to do anything about it. That's really a hard thing, but it is one of the healthiest things that you could do for yourself and for the other person. And once you do, it changes the dynamics completely, and the relationship can be reconfigured very, very beautifully. But you have to be willing to really accept that it's not yours and you're not going to participate in it.
Yeah. You know, I'm sharing an awful lot of stories because you guys keep reminding me of things. But Jen, my relationship with my mother was really tenuous for many, many, many years. There were years that we didn't talk. And at some point in my adulthood, I decided that it was healthier for me to not be a part of her life. And I literally just in my mind, she didn't even know. I didn't go to her and say, I can't be with you anymore. But in my mind, I said, it's over. And I'm not going to let her hurt me anymore. I'm not going to let her, you know, I'm insulating myself in a way because I had to take care of me first until I had my son. And when I had my son in the hospital, she's driving from Arizona to come meet him. And in the hospital, I thought, this is his relationship. He deserves a grandmother. And I let it go and figured that that was the healthiest way that they can have their relationship. And it's not up to me to determine it. And it changed my mother and my dynamic intensely. And I will tell you at this time in my life, I really, really care about her. I love having her in my life, you know, and I'm seeing her from a whole different perspective. But that's because I had to let it go. I had to let go of what I thought my relationship with my mother should look like. I really thought, you know, she should want to take me shopping and we should go have lunch and, you know, go to the show. And I really thought that she would be the one I'd call if anything was wrong and she'd be the first one. And, but, you know, as soon as I let that go, it changed everything for me, everything. And our relationship is great. And she's the first one I called when I got sick. So, you know, I think Alona's right. You know, you have to let it go and it'll change. The perspective will change.
A lot of stress comes from not being able to accept people where they are and accept situations as they will likely continue to be. And I'm like, I mean, I understand what you're saying, that, but it's a huge stressor. I mean, you're talking about how to remove stress from your life, trying to make people what they aren't, or just rail, you know, against the fact that they are the way they are, and just be who you are. And that sort of brings everything like what we're saying together, doesn't it, in a way? I, I the whole estrangement from parents and children, that is, you know, I think that's one thing people don't talk about that I think is sort of rampant. And I think that's also a really big thing. I mean, I feel for you. I wish I had estranged myself, because there comes a point where you should, for your own good, remove yourself from that person. And being women, it's hard to do. I had a very terrible parent, and I took care of him. I came back to the US to take care of both my parents. And, you know, if I'd been smart and taking care of myself, I would not have done that. And that's just the truth of it. And that creates all sorts of other problems down the line. You talked about suppressing things and then having things come back to bite you. It is really, I think, better to deal with stuff on the front end, because you said you just push it down, but you don't, it's still there, and it manifests itself in all sorts of different bizarre ways later. Yeah, so yeah. And the meditation, I know meditation helps with the blood pressure in the moment. I think Alona was talking about how it's temporary, but if you have a practice, it sort of uh, helps you deal with the day-to-day stuff, you know, not so much your physical manifestations like tachycardia or high blood pressure, but over time it will. And that's hardest thing and the easiest thing.
Mhm. Yeah, it really is. You know, Sita, you had, Marilyn had mentioned you had talked about focus. I mean, we're still trying to tackle this idea of how do we deal with our stress and how do we prevent some of the stress that we hold on to. What did you mean by focus?
Well, I'd like to make 3 points. Now
Okay.
that everybody's been talking, this is just a wonderful subject. And I too have a son, or raised 3 sons, and 2 sons that I have trouble communicating with. One son hasn't talked to me for 13 years now. And the other son, we do have regular communication, but it can also get really head on. And the only thing that I can say to their defense is I raised them, okay? And I did teach them how to think. So for whatever their thinking process is, I still got to acknowledge it. But what I want to say about this thing, this kind of a situation is, in my writings, I came up with the term volatile values. And we were all pretty much raised with volatile values. And what are those? That's when we end up enabling a situation that we know this conversation should end, but yet we keep doing it because we hope that it gets better. But what we end up doing is we end up fostering a volatile value. The person wants to get in your face. The person wants you to be accountable. The person wants you to say, I'm sorry for 1,000,000 times.
Yes.
And it's their processing. So we can do it to a certain point, and then we really need to register when that starts feeling uncomfortable, to register that, okay, this is starting to feel uncomfortable. How long am I going to let this go? Because we would go for it for an hour and I would get so exhausted, and then he would leave. And for weeks, I would just be depressed. This went on for 17 years, the one that still talks to me. And so we have had a lot. And so I've written a lot with all of, I mean, he's just one relationship, but volatile values is something that we've got to be aware of, that we are creating within ourselves. Like fostering intimidation is what that ended up being. Fostering intimidation is a volatile value for myself. So that being said, the next point is about the word stress and focus. When I was really, really little and I was still first hearing words, I remember that people would use the word stress when they were talking about, you know, making the recipe just right. You have to stress on using the right ingredients. You can't just, you have to measure it. You have to measure it completely right. You can't just throw it in there. So when you are teaching, you really stress those points. So what does that mean? We are literally focusing. We are literally focusing on that information. So whenever we find ourselves that we are using the word stressful, if we can say, oh, wow, I'm stressing out, what should I be focusing on? What can I be focusing on right now, this minute, to enhance my life, to help my brain? Something right now. What can I focus on? And stop the stressing. So the meditation thing is really good. And yeah, a lot of times we can't meditate, but like you were saying, the practice to develop a routine. I have developed a routine because I don't have a specific time. I just say, okay, I got to make a date with myself. And I got to put this in my own mailbox and, let's address it at 7 o'clock tonight. And I'm telling you, with practice, that actually helps. It's like, okay, let's get on with my business right now. And then I make a date with myself to analyze the situation better later on. Because in my life, in my family, emergency would just take things over. It's an emergency right now. This is so stressful. And then that would cause other problems. So that's another point. I'd like to read something that I just wrote about anxiety, and you can replace the word anxiety with stress. Oh, about the meditation thing. To develop just some kind of routine is when we make a decision with ourselves that we are going to follow a routine. When I say to myself, okay, I'm making a date with myself to do it later, instantly that changes our chemistry in our body and starts shifting that toxic heavy duty energy. The other question is, what am I capable of? So here it is. Anxiety attack is difficult and makes you think you did something wrong or something could go wrong. Focus on what you can do this minute by minute. If you can't do that, your monkey mind's just going wild, then it's time to rest. Rest your body, mind, and spirit. Even if you can't meditate, to just tell yourself you are going to rest right now. 3 minutes can make a radical difference. Rest your body, mind, and spirit. Know that you are then gathering your inner power. You make a deal with yourself. I'm going to go and rest for 5 minutes, and I'm going to gather my inner power. I'm going to figure out when I come out of that 5-minute rest what I am capable of. Know that you are then gathering your inner power. Then hit it again with focus, focus, focus. You are human, not a machine that can be forced. Prepare for success. The end.
That was beautiful.
Yeah, thank you, Sita, very much. Plus, thank you for sharing. I know you talk about your sons, but it's kind of nice to hear, how you're managing it. So thank you. So therapists and Alona.
No, let me say something if I could. Everybody, you refer to therapists. We all refer to therapists, but I've been doing that for a long time, and I can see things with people and try to help them with it. I get locked up with myself.
Sure.
And this, I don't know, I just wanted to say that. And I also wanted to say thank you, Sita. And I wanted to say thank you, Marilyn, because I'll never forget the jerking off comments that you made about people biting at you. And that really helps me. So anyway, that's it.
Can you repeat that one about the jerking off? What is that?
Is Marilyn gone or is she here? She just said when people bite at you constantly and want to rage at you, like Sita was talking about, they're just jerking off.
Oh, that's so true.
Marilyn, you're muted. Marilyn, you're muted.
I didn't know if I was or not because a plane went by, so I muted. I just got this vision, not so much literally because that's disgusting, but when people are just carrying on, and when I finally realized I'm not participating in this anymore, they're off in a corner jerking off and just, that's all it is. And I don't have to be a part of it and I don't have to watch it and I can separate myself because it's a negative toxic energy, whether it's directed, I mean, as long as nobody's in danger, but that has really helped me too, since this came into my head.
I like it. I like it because it actually goes back to 4 agreements and all those things. I mean, it's about themselves. They can, what they're going through, they would go through irrespective of us. It's their issue. You're just a means by which they can express their feelings, but you don't have to be part of the quotient. They can go and do that independently. I love the jerking off thing.
It's a very nice, it's a visual I can't now get out of my head, but it's like, oh no, every time I see somebody. Marie, about the breathing, just taking a couple minutes every day. I have an Apple Watch. I don't know how to use it. And things pop up on it all the time. Like this man's running. I'm like, what's happening? I'm just sitting here and this guy's running on my watch. And it goes back and forth from Mickey Mouse to a kaleidoscope. So I have no idea what's going on with it, but it does have this breathing thing that pops up all the time. I don't know where it came from. And it just tells you to breathe.
I love it. I think it's a great reminder. When it pops up, it's what, less than a minute. It's a great reminder to take a moment, because when you take those nice full breaths, you're oxygenating.
Yes.
We're shallow breathers, and remember, stress is a thinking condition. We fabricate it.
That's right.
It's truly a thinking condition. Now, I've got 2 tips that I usually give my clients, which gives them permission to have a fit. It's ridiculous, but it works. The first one is when they're starting to have those stressful thoughts is to tell ego to shut the F up, but say it out loud. And you will notice complete silence right where ego lives. Complete silence.
Just be careful who you're around when you yell out, shut the fuck up.
Sometimes it's usually in the car, but
hopefully it's not the guy next to you jerking off.
And then the other one is, go put yourself in a room somewhere and scream as loud as you can. Let all that vocalization out. That actually gives you good endorphins to release that stress. I've done it. I've done both, actually.
So Lisa, we have come full circle to what you said about the baby.
Full circle, right? But I guess the one thing I am going to remember is that when my watch tells me to breathe, I shouldn't yell at it, right? I should just do it.
Sure. Yeah.
That's
Scream as loud as you can.
It's my first step. Listen to my watch.
The vocalization really helps move, it helps move the emotions. Also, another thing for stress, if you guys like Play-Doh, just walk around and squish Play-Doh. You're literally transmitting the emotion onto the Play-Doh.
Good idea.
And it works, because when I was doing a whole round with kids, it was amazing how much stuff they would sit there squeezing, and they'd make different things for me as they were talking. That would let me know how much stress they had on them.
Yeah.
So Play-Doh works.
Okay.
No, I also think there's an emotional component underneath all this. Like when Sophia was talking about how the body starts to give out, I think it's because we're fighting the emotions of sadness or anger or things that really need to come out. And if we stay busy, because like I meditate 45 minutes a day, I walk 2 hours a day, I do all these self-care things. But lately when I meditate, all these tears come because underneath all that, I was doing, and I guess my body's saying no more, like it's too much, right? And
Well, I would also say that your body, when you're doing, you don't have to focus on anything. It's kind of like what we were talking about, stuffing down your emotions. It's a different way of doing it. And in order to really stay healthy, you have to stop and look at what's going on that's causing you stress, and you can't ignore it. So walking around and doing your tasks is great. You feel really efficient. But in the end, when you stop to think or to meditate, more important to meditate because it's about your feelings and a different part of your brain, then yes, it comes out. And that's really key, that part.
Janet, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I think, Janet, you and I have always gone to exercise as a meditation, because when I spin, it's a meditation. I'm completely there. And I've been restarting yoga because my body was so much in pain these last 3 weeks, I could hardly walk. And I started going back to yoga. And this morning I went to a hot yoga class. And what I've found lately is when I'm doing Savasana, at the end, I start crying every time. I can't, it just pops up. And I'm glad it's dark because it just pops out of you, like you were saying.
Thank
Pops
your
out.
body. Thank your body because it's allowing you to release that stuff. Ladies, all I can tell you is that it's not good to suppress or push down. It's so important that you literally work through it, walk through it, whatever you need to do. There is no way around it. If you avoid it, if you run from it, you're only going to make it worse. It will make it that much worse. And talking from somebody here that cried for 4 months straight, I learned that I think I've shortened the process because I've literally sat with it. You don't have to sometimes understand it. You just have to allow your body to just process it and let it out.
And I think that's what the presence process, somebody just recommended, I haven't read it yet, but it's about this stuff has been down here for a long time. And when you're present, you can, get to the place where you start at neutral. And so you don't have to keep those things stuffed down. But a lot of it is heartbreak from childhood that, we started to figure out, okay, that hurt. And then we kept moving on to the next thing, the next step. And we need to get it out of us. Yeah.
So when you have that, stuff from childhood, that is when you really should be processing with a therapist. But if you're strong enough to do it yourself, literally, because I do EMDR, it's like nanoseconds. You're starting connecting the dots and you're literally moving through it, and not in today's time, but you're really processing stuff from then. And it just goes very quickly. Like you could be profoundly entrenched in that emotion, and then 10 seconds later, you're like laughing at what was that about? Because your brain it's processing. Your amygdala is letting go of that stuff and making room for what's to come.
Wow. That's a good note there to wrap things up. Marie, thank you. Although I'm a little stressed now because my hummingbird just came up and he's hungry. So he's taunting me from outside the window here right now, just hovering, looking at me. It's causing me stress. So move on. But it is, because I'm like, oh my God, now I have to get up and I have to make him the sugar water and I have to cool it and I have to wash all those little things. So look what I've just done in a very short period of time, created this stressor. I think today was helpful. I mean, I'm hoping that you guys did too. I think that every one of us added and contributed something that we could all relate to and ways to deal with it, like Ilona said and Marie said, and Janet was talking about walks and Sita, and I just it's just amazing how we all come together and solve the world's problems just in an hour every Monday. So
Hey, speaking of the world's problems, Ilona, are we still talking about only a month or so left for Ukraine?
The end of June. We're still looking at the end of June.
We're not even in May yet, right?
Right.
Okay.
Thank God, that's coming.
We'll be in May next week, Janet. Okay, so the end of June. Okay.
Does that mean that the world conflict will get better, or just that?
So the actual conflict in Ukraine and Russia, but the repercussions are going to be long-term in different ways. But the actual, violence itself should stop somewhere around the end of June. But what's being put in place is so much greater than just two countries. I mean, the effect of economics around the world, climate change, fossil fuels, sustainability, agriculture, our ability to feed ourselves. There's so much in place that will have to work itself out, that the ramifications for this are years in the making. Years in the making.
Well, okay, that's sad.
But you just hold the vision, hold the vision for, for peace in the world, not just in the Ukraine and Russia, but throughout the world. And that's the best thing, to keep holding that vision no matter what, and knowing that it looks really, really bad now, but things may come out of this that are going to be really critical and important, for the future in ways that we don't understand. Again, it's a position of faithful awareness, and you have to be able, you can't think this, you have to be able to become aware of it from a larger soul's mind. And we have access to that if we're willing to plug in. And it also means detaching. There's a statement that I often use is, you can be connected without intimacy. You can be connected to a family member that's blood related, but they're actually no real part of your life. You're just connected. You don't share anything intimate with them. And that's not a bad thing, and it's an alternative to complete estrangement, which sometimes feels a lot better and easier to deal with than the grief of complete estrangement. But if we're really talking about the human race, we've been estranged from our soul for a very long time. And the repercussions of that in terms of self-destruction have permeated the planet. One of the things that you can do is call your senators and congressmen and ask them to support the National Recovery Wildlife Act, which is going to be the largest piece of legislation related to wildlife since the Endangered Species Act. So I would encourage all of you to do that. The other thing you also might want to do is just see ribbons of diamond, ruby, and sapphire energies descending into all of the Ukrainian people and descending into the land as well, just for a lot of crystalline support and strength and clarity and hope. And the other part of this whole larger experience is, the more we are our best soul connected selves, the more we offer hope to the larger civilization to make those connections that allow us to at least consider respecting each other, even if we have no desire in connecting to each other.
I was just reminded, Satnam Kaur, I was listening to her the other day, and she was talking about sending love to Ukraine. But one thing she said, that it really starts with each of us in following, creating peace for ourselves, inner peace, so that it can join the collective in terms of that whole feeling of peace and connectedness. But it really starts with each one of us choosing to have peace within us. And I thought that was beautiful.
Yeah, it is beautiful. Okay, I mean, I think that we can do that, Alona. I think we can do that, Marie. I feel like after today, we can do anything. So that was great. Thank you, ladies, so much again. Thank you, everyone, for contributing. And go ahead, Janet.
I was gonna say, yeah, thank you, everybody. Yes, that was helpful. And then again, I'll go ask Colleen on my side of the family about the abundance. We'll find out when she has time to come in. But I know we also have Betty wanting to do the microdosing of hallucinogenics or something. Right?
Yeah, psychedelics, I think is what she said. And but she needs a little more experience under her belt. That's what they all say. But wasn't there a TV series, like an HBO thing or something, about a whole bunch of people that went and right, Donna? I can't remember what the name of it is, but I watched it and it was crazy. But it was, I can't remember. Do you remember the name of it, Donna?
It was Nicole Kidman.
Yes, Nicole.
And nine people who were put together at a retreat center, where it was very orchestrated, all of the events and all of the activities, and they were being microdosed and initially did not know it.
Right.
It changed their lives dramatically, and I cannot think of what the name. Nine Perfect Strangers.
Yes. If you haven't seen it, it's kind
very good.
Very good.
It was on Hulu.
Hulu, okay. And yeah, it was very good, but I don't know if that's the same thing as what Betty's talking about, but I think that was the premise behind it. So we would love to. And Betty also at one time, and maybe we can have her do it again, talked about, you know, she's an end of life nurse.
Doula.
Yeah, she's
Social worker.
yes. And so she once did, I think it was called Death Cafe. Was that what it was called? And it was really wonderful. It sounded scary, but it wasn't. And we have a lot of new people here, so I think you guys would all benefit from that. So I will reach out and ask her to do that. She is Buddhist, and so she brings to it a whole different perspective as well, which is kind of, it's very sweet. So, and if you guys have any ideas or things that you want to talk about, please let us know. We're always open to suggestions. Yeah, Marilyn?
What was the name of the one you just mentioned?
9 Perfect Strangers.
No, after that, the other one?
Um,
Death Cafe?
Death Cafe. Thank you. Just writing it down. Thank you.
Okay.
But the
Thank you,
Death
Marilyn.
Cafe was what Betty does. It's not a show, right? Yeah. It's
Betty,
just,
Oh, I thought it was a movie. Okay.
No,
I'm
no,
just-
not yet.
Right.
We haven't
Not
started
yet.
filming yet, but just hang in there. I think we're going to become a sitcom one day, all of us.
Okay.
If you ladies are up for another book, I've been listening to Brene Brown's Atlas of the Heart. It's even an HBO series. Oh my goodness. Because you know, we did the 4 agreements and she really dives into meaning of words and lack of words of emotion in our culture, in our language. I mean, her research just blows me out of the water. So if you guys want to do another book, we can look into that one because that one really does focus
Yes,
on
yes.
words.
Okay.
I've been listening to it and I've just been like in awe of everything I've heard.
Okay. Atlas.
What's the name of
Atlas of the Heart. And there is an HBO series on it. So if you guys have HBO, check it out. I started watching it and I fell asleep on one of those late, but I can't wait to get back to it. It's really good. Well, and you know, Brene Brown is a great speaker. She's just very natural at it. So
Colleen's clapping. Did you want to say something, Colleen?
I'm all for it.
Me too.
I just saw these little yellow hands jump up in the corner, so. Okay, that's great. Marie, we'll look into that, and I think that's a good idea. I think people enjoy the book studies, so that could be fun. Yay.
yay.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Have a good week.
Have a good
Thank you, you too.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.